Rod Duff, your host.
And I'm producer Barbie.
And together,
we bring you our podcast,
Insights and Straight Talk. And with that, producer Barbie and I are out. Good morning and welcome to Insights and Straight Talk. I'm Rod Duff, and you know what? This is Friday Mic Drop. So let's begin with something important here. Cooper Earl, we've talked about him a lot. Cooper didn't just win the commissioner seat, he won by a very large margin. Mary Jane Scott didn't just edge out a win as mayor, she won in a landslide. And here's what stands out to me. The two individuals who showed up openly showed their heart, their vision, and their love for Mangum. Right here on this show are the two now serving. Cooper sat right here on Monday. Mary Jane sat here last Friday. They answered questions. They didn't hide. They spoke plainly. And this town responded. That tells us something very powerful about Mangum, Oklahoma. It tells us that character still matters. Conversation still matters. Transparency still matters. That's exciting. But here's the deeper truth. Election night is adrenaline, okay? Leadership is endurance. After the applause fades, after the comment threads kind of cool down, after the signs come off the lawns, something quieter sets in. What's that, you say? It's responsibility. And I've been thinking about where that responsibility actually lives. It doesn't just live at City Hall. It lives in the bodies of the people who show up. Inside Total Fitness Health Club, I've been having ongoing conversations with Marilyn McAllister. She's a trainer, one who understands something we don't talk about enough. Muscle is steadiness. Food is fuel. Supplements they're actually support. We talked about that in yesterday's show. Mobility is independence. Strength is longevity. Marilyn and I have been talking about building muscle, not for appearance, but for durability, for balance, for bone density. That's critical as we get older. For energy that doesn't disappear at 3:00 in the afternoon. Because here's the connection no one makes loudly. Strong bodies support steady minds. Steady minds support engaged citizens. Engaged citizens sustain healthy towns. You cannot build civic endurance on physical depletion. And you know what? I came here from a big city, excited to bring experience into a small town. But I'm learning something humbling here. There are advantages here that big cities desperately need to learn from. Face-to-face accountability, leadership that shops where you shop, community that gathers together in a gym and talk about food, supplements, infrastructure, and responsibility, all in the same hour. That's not weakness, that's strength. So here's the real Friday mic drop question. Will Mangum be a town that reacts loudly or builds steadily? Will we live off election momentum or develop long-term stamina? Because the work doesn't begin on election night. Coop told me just last week, the work begins the morning after. And that's where we are now. So as we go into the things that we go into here on the show, I love Oh wow, we already have a couple hundred people on. Hey, welcome. Please subscribe, everybody. Hopefully, there's a bunch of you celebrating the oncoming new visions that will most undoubtedly start coming in through our new commissioner and our new mayor. Hats off and congrats to Mary Jane and Coop. We're going to start. I was talking to, if you know that there's a few restaurants that are starting to open up, and there's some things that are happening in town that are kind of exciting. To me, they are. Let me move this over here. Looks like we already put toilet paper in the toilet and then drop it. Oh my goodness. Okay, we got some comics already on board here. That goes in and goes out, and that goes in and goes out. I would say I'm not sure. I think you have some good ideas there, Mister RH6761. Oh wow, we looks like we've got some people popping on here. Look at this. We got an excited crowd this morning. Welcome in, everybody. Come on in, and we're streaming here to LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and got almost 300 people on. I appreciate you guys showing up quick and early. We're going to talk a little bit about the election, not a lot. We're going to talk about this arc that we're on. We've got close to 400 people on right now. I appreciate you guys being here. It looks like Noah Christensen and RH6761 have really come in, and they've already had a couple of sips of their coffee. They've got maybe some sambuca going on there, and they're having a good old time. Here, let me do this like I usually do. There's, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just go ahead and delete all of these. Delete comment. Delete comment. No, you're not. I'm going to leave the no, you're not there just because. So what a way to start the day, huh? Yeah. So anyway, as I was saying, we've got a new mayor and a new commissioner here in town, and this arc that we're on in the show, I'll be writing today. I'll finish the column for the Mangum Star, and that column is starting to change the arc of what we're talking about now from civic responsibility. You know, we started by this arc by talking about how systems fail and how they kind of decay over time, and that's when people stop listening and start yelling past each other in political discussions and so forth and so on. Let me change this. Let me just change this media asset to there we go. If you see here, this is the Leaf Lab. That's one of our sponsors, as well as the Mangum City Library. I'll flip those back and forth for you guys. Where I'm sitting here now is in the library. We're on the top floor of the library, and they've been extremely good to us. There, we'll use that, or maybe I'll come back to this after. I'll flip back and forth. So how is everybody today? I'm glad to see you here. You came out in force and in big numbers. It's good to see you here. We had an interesting start. I thought that was quite humorous. And as I was saying in this arc, we started off this arc in civic responsibility And it really started through all the unrest that's been going on around the country and frankly the world. There's a bit of a shift happening, and hopefully that shift will then cool the waters or cool the tides, and people will soon be able to start communicating with each other and and having discourse that makes sense. As I talked about in the opening monologue, when I came to this town, I was really excited to, coming from big cities and bringing that experience to a small town, and in whatever way that turns out to be or is turning out to become, was something I looked forward to and excited about, and and didn't know what that would look like, but knew that was the path, part of the path, right? So I uh, so I came here, and as I said, a little bit of a humbling experience started to begin in that um, I started to realize that actually this small town has so much to offer, especially some of the big cities that I've come from. The the face to face here is phenomenal. I think I told you guys the other day. I've had people just pull over. I walk around a lot in town to go pick up groceries or walk the dogs, of course, and walk here to the library. Sometimes with them and sometimes without them. Um, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Branson. I've seen you on a few times recently. I appreciate you guys coming in and showing up, and it is, live. You guys, the audience, are the ones who really inspire the vibe of this show, that really inspire the rhythm of this show, and how conversations kind of unfold and lay themselves out about really important topics like today, where we're talking this arc. We're talking through this within another show or another Friday mic drop or two. We're going to land completely on building our health. There's we you've heard me mention a number of times about centurions on this show, and that term just meaning that, especially when we talk about health, it comes up quite periodically. I think is the best way to put it. Um, but when we talk about centurions, we're talking about people who've lived 100 years or more, and they've always wondered. And there was a study that came out quite a while ago now, um, but I refer to that study, and I refer to it kind of this way, in that uh, when they started this research, they began to discover these groups. There were little pockets sprinkled around. There's one here in Kansas area. But to give you an example, what I mean is they could they could locate these groups and then begin to study them. Reason being is why what are the commonalities? Why are they living uh, to 100 and beyond? The monks, for example, right? It's because they have a purpose, they have a mission, they have something that they're doing in their life that drives them, that gets them up every day, and that motivates them. And you add that with what we talked about just a day or two ago with fasting and supplements now, because we don't eat foods that, now I say fasting and then shortly thereafter I talk about food. So when we eat food, the food that we eat is highly processed and very, very bad for you. We talked about needing copper in our bodies, And then on the other side of that, we need to fast, past 20 hours in a lengthened time, 20 hours in a row, in other words. That begins cell recovery and really gets the body to be able to take it off of digesting things, and then now working on the body and at the cellular level. And we talk about the conversations that Marilyn and McAllister and myself are having. I don't. Well, actually, well, let me finish this thought, and I'll jump onto this. Um, Marilyn McAllister and I are having have had a number of now conversations, and how building muscle really creates that steadiness and that ability to be independent. Thus, creating the ability to fuel that that mission that you have. Those combination of things here is where this arc is headed, and I'm really excited about what we're talking about and how much people are involved. To your question, Jim, I don't have a guest here today. This is Friday, Mike. Now I may have somebody pop on. Somebody had actually Penny had mentioned he may pop up. Let me look. Let me see if he sent me a note or anything updated. Just to let you know. Okay, I'll get that later. WordPress. Let me come down to this one. See if there's any update. But what I'm getting at is I may I may or may not have somebody pop on today. Simon, not Simon, I apologize. I'm having another one of those days today, guys. Wes might pop on a little bit later, just come in and say hi and check in with me. I haven't talked to him in a while now, but hopefully he pops on somewhere in the next, I don't know, half hour or so, just for a couple of minutes, say hi. So as far as a guest, though, I try not to have somebody scheduled on these days. Every once in a while it happens, but I like to kind of review the week, what's gone on in the world, as well as specifically on the show. God, we've got 300 or so people here. It's great to have you here. I appreciate it. Start bringing in the questions, folks. Everybody's been making comments all over the place, but I'd love to get into some conversation with you about some of the things that are going on. As I said, we're really starting to get into the where I'm really kind of envisioning the show going as we kind of mature and find our space and find our pace, and and kind of get ourselves dialed in. Dialed into an identity that will always mature and grow and change, but for now, I kind of see this show kind of wrapping up the previous week. Week in review, we originally called this show. Oh, interesting. We got some good questions starting to come in. I appreciate that, guys. But I see this show as kind of finishing off or reviewing the previous week as it rolled out. And what's interesting is we're going along an arc, and it's funny how it's interesting to me how the the episodes are kind of falling along that arc, not on purpose, because when guests come on, they contact me through a couple of different sources. One of them, say, Matchmaker FM. That's the largest. Uh, Although it's starting to come in from all over now, as people are starting to kind of get to see our show and get comfortable with and knowledgeable about you, the audience, and they're coming in from different locations now, are different sources, but as we wrap up Friday, we then start to continue on that arc and kind of let be known what's coming in the episodes that follow. Meaning we're really starting to drive into health and endurance and mobility, and because it matters, it matters a lot. Um, I'll get into your questions here in a moment, folks. The reason I say it matters is because we just coming out of civic responsibility, and that kind of the peak of that, uh, of that of the arc that we're on. The peak of that part of it came on election night, which is Tuesday this week, and in the Mangum Star, I wrote about the election, and then and that was the opening. And as we're starting to come on the other side of that, we're now talking about how we fuel that civic responsibility with being able to show up and having the energy and having the power to be able to do those things, even as simple as helping your neighbor out, being healthy enough to not hurt yourself, or not cause yourself harm by helping out. Um, and 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 in the show earlier in the week, where we were talking, actually the end of last week, a separate health episode, we were talking about how building muscle is more important than endurance, than cardiovascular, than your cardiovascular work, because it's the muscle that builds the frame. Like we talked about day before yesterday, your skeleton, if everything came off of it, it would just lay perfectly aligned, and gravity would take over and bring the bones, into that. Imagine that shape. It's the muscle that then moves and supports organs, and the I forgot what that was called that he was talking about yesterday, but that 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 what attaches the muscle to the bone. That muscle, that density I'm learning is so important. And that's why I love that transition that we're on now, and we'll probably talk to Marilyn quite a bit over. So I hope to get her onto the show, to be honest with you, here in the next few weeks. But that's what we'll be talking about coming up. We're still in the election fever. So Krishana, Chris Hanna, sorry, Chris. Sorry about that. I just butchered your name. How will Mary Jane prioritize unity moving forward? Well, she talked about it on the show when she was here. And I've talked to her a couple of times also, aside from that, since. But that's an important question, Chris. And I appreciate that, because what we really need to continue building here. And I mentioned earlier how excited I was to be a big city fella, bringing experience to this small town. And what I'm starting to understand, see, is that that we have here in this small town, we have things that big cities can really desperately need to learn from. So, uh, as far as our direction in moving, um, transparency and being able to lead with people that you have face to face conversations with on a daily basis. That's the beauty of living in a town that has a grocery store with only 6, 7 aisles in it. You're going to run into the people. You're gonna go to the same church. You're going to go to the Friday night football game. Hey, look here. I alluded that somebody may be popping on. Looks like he came in a little bit early, and we're going to bring him in right now. I want to welcome Penny. How are you, my friend?
It's good to be here, Rod. Thank you. I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, we're just kind of Friday mic drop today, and so we're just kind of going over some of the events and the arc that we're on right now. From civic responsibility and how do you continue contain that? No, I shouldn't say contain. How do you continue on that, and how do you handle that? Um, you handle that through not only education but also through sustainability. In other words, through health, through building muscle, staying active. And so we're kind of having that kind of conversation today. And I had mentioned to some people earlier that you might be popping on. I wanted you to talk about specifically, when I brought this up the other day. I wanted you to talk about specifically, we talk a lot about Leaf Lab in general, and
Hmm.
we talk about its mission, its purpose. And I think we've got a pretty good handle of why Leaf Lab exists. But what do you guys? What is your biggest mission right now? What is your biggest need right now? What do you guys? In 5, 10 minutes, what do you
Hmm.
guys? I don't know how big the list is, but what are you guys really looking for right now? I know we've talked about it back in the back hallways, but what are you looking for right now? What would really be important for you and Leaf Lab to achieve right now?
Yeah, I think we're. Thank you for that, Rod, and I appreciate the intro to all of that.
You
Studio
bet.
looks great. Studio looks great, by the way. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thank you
um,
very much. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. So, we the Leaf Lab is at the end of the day, we're an experiential learning center for students to get professional work experience. And, as you've said, you've shared, our mission. We find that many students, when they graduate, they're super smart, they're super educated, they have a degree, and they have no idea what they're doing when they show up to that first job because they haven't really ever worked in that environment before. And colleges don't really provide that. So we're working with students, and we work with students of really all ages. Let's just say from eighth or ninth grade all the way up to PhD students in college. Our sweet spot, probably high school students and college students. And we build programs for these students where we work with employers, and the employers are able to give us work. We don't let them give us their number one projects because someone might
Hey,
get
Penny,
fired.
can I ask? Yeah, true. Can I ask you something here? What kind of employers do you typically kind of see on your in your lab that are
Mhm.
asking? Like you said, they're not doing the number one thing that is most critical. But what's really nice about it is if you free up these other tasks that must be done that have eyeballs on them. They're obviously important enough to have eyeballs on them. But what type of employers are these? I'm sure they range, but I'm curious.
They do range, but there's some themes that pop up, I would say. The employers that like to give us work for the students to work on, they tend to be smaller organizations, mid-sized organizations, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, a lot of
Makes
nonprofit
sense.
work that we work, and then a lot of really innovative type companies as well. People who are pushing the boundaries of what work really looks like these days. Maybe it's in technology, maybe it's in education, it's in a variety of areas. But I think the common thread we find is purpose, that their purpose and our purpose align, which is we are trying to help the students, help young talent be better prepared, but we're also looking for access to them as well. I have a long running theory that there's not a big difference between somebody, let's just say it's an accountant. Maybe accounting, maybe if finance and accounting doesn't change, but let's say marketing. A 10 or 15-year veteran of marketing may not have an advantage over a student coming out of college today. Now, I'll give an asterisk to that. A student coming out of college who's done some Leaf Lab work with us, they can position themselves for some very high level stuff because they're getting access to learning that doesn't happen in the workplace. The workplace has a lot of FOMO right now, fear of missing out. The workplace is sort of terrified at the moment because they recognize that younger students, they're going to replace them. I mean, it's like NFL football, right? You got a big $40 million quarterback, and then some young kid comes along, and it doesn't hurt so much to let your $40 million guy go to put a young kid in there to go do the work. I'm not giving Jerry Jones advice. I'm just saying out loud.
I was talking actually a couple of different times on the show in a couple of different episodes. We were talking about kids, right? And we were talking about this new generation, these kids coming up, and I gave an example of your and my conversation one time. This conversation was like a month ago or so, and you had said to me, you know what, Rod, you'd be surprised because you work with a lot of kids, continually, right? That's what you do. And because you're doing that, you're getting a lot of exposure to this generation. And to your point, what you told me that day really is stuck with me. And you said you'd be surprised at how smart the kids are today. They just speak a different language. And then I added the to that. It's like they're so far ahead of us now that we don't even see the smoke, the dust on the trail that they're on ahead of us.
I like that.
It's just that they're speaking that different language, and it's fascinating. So I just kind of opened up my eyes and started listening more, even still. And you're right, kids are amazing. I mean, there's all different people in the world, but kids are pretty amazing these days.
Yeah, you're being nice and sort of paraphrasing and quoting me, because I was a little less nice when I said it. The way I said it was, before I was working with this age group, sort of 16 to 24-year-olds, let's say, I thought it was a lost generation. I thought it was a wasted generation. And you can take that word to mean whatever you want, but the word wasted generation. But the reality is I got to speaking with these students, and I got to working with them. Thank you. I started working with these students, and guess what I found out? The old guy sitting over here was wrong. And there is unbelievable talent. And not only that, but the talent doesn't see the world the way we see it, because they're looking at our world and saying, you guys aren't very good at this. And, I think this is an opportunity for younger people to have a voice and speak up and say, we get it, we're different, but we can also contribute. And in my opinion, they can really contribute.
Oh, big time. And they're going to have to, because the world that they're inheriting, the other part of that same conversation goes like this, we're right now, and actually on a comment on yesterday's show really kind of came back, and it's the world that they're inheriting now, that kids have always inherited each generationally. When they get to life, when they get to the point of life, they go through education, and then they get to life, they're not prepared. They're walking into it blind, literally walking into the world completely blind of what's coming at them now. And that came back to me as recently as yesterday on a comment, not here, but like later in the show. Man, what you said about going into the world blind is so true. And that's such a big thing that people like you, that companies like Leaf Lab, that the approach is that preparation, that bridge between traditional education, and what we're trying to do to traditional education with Regeneration School Project, between traditional education and life, there's no bridge right now. You just kind of jump and you either make it to the other side or maybe not so well. But that bridge is beautiful in what you guys are doing. And none of this costs the students anything. You don't charge the students at all, right?
That is correct. So we work with companies and we work with schools, and they're the ones who pay us. It's always free for students to be able to come into the lab and get to explore. What we've done is it's a 12-week program. Students work 2 to 5 hours a week virtually.
In the lab. In the lab.
When I say
just
in
like
the lab.
we are here.
Yeah.
Just like we are here. Like we logged into something. Now we're talking. Yeah. They would log virtually into the lab, and there would be a project sitting. What does that look like? What does all that look like?
So
if I'm a student, I sit down. What happens? Go ahead.
So one of the things that we do is we open the doors on the front end to the lab for anybody who wants to participate, who is currently a student. And it's very different. Like, people are thinking, well, isn't this just an internship? Aren't you just, letting people work on company work, isn't it? But an internship is so exclusive on the front end. They're very selective on even what schools or communities they'll speak to. And then they narrow. And if you're lucky, or maybe your parents know someone influential, you'll get that internship. We view it very differently, as we want to democratize experience. And by that, I mean is let's give it to everybody a chance who wants to improve their future and get this kind of real work experience on real work projects. And then we let them into the lab. And so the way it materially works is we put them in teams of 2 or 3 students. Each team is assigned a coach. The coach is an adult. It's usually an agile specialist or professional. And someone who knows project management, in other words. And the coach works with the students, but never tells them what to do. Doesn't give them any solutions. The students get to figure it all out, and they get to make mistakes as well. The coach is there to ask them questions, unbreak them when they get blocked on things, etc. And what we find is that after even just a 12-week experience of 2 to 5 hours a week, students are able to come out of the lab, and we don't kick them out at 12 weeks. They can stay in forever, but they come out of the lab with real work experience, and they're actually prepared for that first day of work, not because of the experience, but because of the skills they've developed along the way: collaboration, problem solving, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's exactly the bridge that I was alluding to earlier, right? I mean, what people don't learn in school is life. I keep beating on this drum, and life is about being able to sit down and collaborate with other people, to be able to look at a problem. Let's call it problem solving. Look at a problem and work their way through that while collaborating maybe with another adult, having that conversation, the mentorship that goes on there. Those things are so untouched these days, and not that not that it was necessarily over the top before, but it definitely has gotten worse over time. That skill set just doesn't exist anymore, and what happens, and I think that's why radicalism really, and I've started to touch into politics, but it's in every aspect of our life. I think that's why radicalism really kind of sets in at such a deeper stage, because what happens is people don't think, they don't analyze, they don't listen. None of these skills are taught anymore, and yet through what you're doing, all of those things happen. And then on top of it, which is the thing I've always latched onto, is it also puts the student ahead at the front of the line when they're going in and looking for that job, maybe even ahead of interns. Not all interns get a job, and not all interns walk into a great. Just to add to your previous point, I know interns that they walk into a place and they're like, okay, I'm ready. Here I am. I'm going to start my life now. And they walk into this person's office and he's like, oh, shit, I really don't. Let me try and figure something out for you to do. Okay.
Yeah.
That happens far, I'm sure, far too often. But
typical.
now they get a digital. Now, hey, remember we talked about how the medical industry, you can go to your doctor's office and they'll pull up your My Chart and all the things that you've done medically are in there. Your medicines, whatever, you go back decades, it's all there. Aren't you guys working on that too? But now you get something for your resume. You get these achievements that you can point at and actually do. You get to move to the front of the line. Can you talk about that a little bit, and then we'll kind of wrap up? And I've got to get on the election stuff here. Go ahead.
So what we do is we build a learning record for the students, and that learning record is digital, of course. And from the learning record, we can build a portfolio from it for the student. It can show off things like, what project did I work on? It can show off maybe some demos that the students did while they were working on that project. So you can actually see digital proof of the work that they've done. But I think most importantly too, is that also each project has a list of really durable skills that the students get to develop while they're working on it. And they can show that to an employer and say, while I did this work, here were the skills that I was working on. And that's a whole lot more powerful than showing an employer that whatever, I joined the X club, whatever the club is, or even that I got an internship that my parents were helping me to land. But to your point, they didn't know what to do with me while I was there. This is so different because it's so targeted and focused on making sure that the students have what they need to be successful and to continue that pathway. Not to mention just the learning pathways that they go through, which are so different than the learning pathways you and I went through. When we were kids, it was how much information can you shove into a kid's head and hope that they remember 40% of it. That's the way we went to school. But what we're doing these days is something entirely different. And AI is actually helping, not hurting, because everyone thinks, well, AI is thinking for them. And that is true. Those are the people who are falling behind. But for those who use AI as a co-pilot and have a level of skepticism on the outputs that it gives out, you can really start to build judgment by using AI. And the projects that we have for our students are usually very heavily AI driven as well. I know that the colleges and the high schools they go to tell them, don't use AI, you're cheating, etc. But we look at it completely different.
That's silly. That's silly nowadays.
Any teacher who gives a project to a student that the student can just put it in AI and get the answer and be done, shame on that teacher. We need better. We need them to build projects. And so we're working both with the schools and the employers, but with the schools, we can help them with these ideas as well, as how to improve your offering. And a big part of it is bring in the Leaf Lab. Let us do a little work with you and we'll show you. I would love one day in Magnum, I would love to build a community incubator, talent incubator for Magnum someday, where anyone in the
community. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that it'll take a little bit of funding, but hopefully we can find some of that locally. But what we do is we can stand up a community incubator in Magnum where anyone in town, they don't have to be a student for this type of activity. They can be unemployed or underemployed, or they just can't get the experience to do the job they want to do. Well, we can build a lab for the city, for residents in the city and their surrounding areas, where they will get access to the same type of work that the students are getting access, and they can improve their skills. They can get experience on their resume, get a learning record, bring proof to interviews. Hey, I've done this stuff. So you might have that one viewer out there who says, I could drop, $10,000 and we could stand this up for a whole year in Magnum and see what it does for the community. It would help the community tremendously. I know it would.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's, we're talking, there's a bunch of questions here in regards to some of the things that Mangum is going to end up doing, and what are the first things that coming out of the election that they're going to do. And I'm excited because those questions are being asked here, and we're kind of in the middle, in the heart of that. We've got a city board election coming up next month, so I'm going to get started on working with that. But with this new blood and this new energy that's coming into leadership here, I can see where some of that stuff can really be something serious that we'll be able to take part in and be involved in, because this town and really all rural towns, honestly, I think, they have their biggest problem or issue is that saying that people say, and if you ever want to make it in this world, you're going to have to go somewhere else, kid.
Yeah.
Right. And that's now possible to turn around. That concept is now possible to turn around in this digital world, and it's fascinating that we can really achieve being able to make it and stay where you grew up in, and that's an exciting thought. You know what else? One other thing before I let you go here, I was thinking about this. That digital. What did you call it?
I called it a learning record.
So that digital learning record, it also stands out. You know, you're something. Everybody brings a resume, or they attach their resume to an email, or they bring that in, or whatever. If you're bringing a digital learning record along with your resume, especially one whose resume probably doesn't have a lot on it, you know, coming into the book club that they were in, or that, like you said, instead of that, here's some projects that I actually worked on. That's really cool. What do you want to leave? Wow, there's 300 people on. What do you want to leave everybody with for a lasting thought here, my friend?
Yeah, I think I'll just follow up on your final point here, which is with the resume. What we're seeing all across the country now, not just in small towns like Mangum, but others as well, is AI is writing the resumes, and AI is reading AI is reading the resumes, and you know, there's no humans left in it. It feels like sometimes, and so this humanizes that whole experience process. And the final thing is, yes, it sets them apart. A student who can bring this type of it. Forgive me for saying the word Washington D.C., but in D.C. they like to say bring the receipts. I know they like to talk about bringing the receipts, you know, proof, and that's what this program is. It's a way to bring the receipts that you've done it, you've learned it, and you know, I and hopefully had a lot of fun along the way, because you got experience doing things you didn't get to do before. You've built your resume, and we created a safe environment where the learning is very, very safe, meaning we expect students to fail. They will fail at things along the way, but we don't believe that there is even a concept called failure. What we believe in is there are no failures, there's only experiments. And so if a group of students goes down a pathway exploring something for a business, and in the end, it doesn't match their hypothesis, or it didn't work out, it wasn't a good output, it's still a great output, because guess what? That company now doesn't have to go down that pathway. They've already seen what it looks like. And so the students, it's amazing how failing isn't really failing. It's just another part of the pathway to success. And so we've created an environment that really celebrates that type of mindset. And we think the students have a lot of fun doing it. We know they're leveraging themselves for the future. And, you know, the idea of doing things like this, whether in small communities or big fancy colleges, we just want to bring it. We want to bring it to everyone, so it's democratized. Everybody has an access. You don't have to have a parent who knows a CEO to set up your future now. You can just simply come to the Leaf Lab, get the experience, and you have leveraged yourself ahead. And all of this ties into community building, particularly in small towns like Mangum. It really can be a community builder to improve the talent and get the talent to stay, you know, amazing stuff.
I will definitely be talking to Coop and to Mary Jane and the others over at the board
Awesome.
and talk to them about this community thing, because I really like what how you frame that, how that looks, and we'll definitely be talking more about that.
Yeah, tell them we can white label it, meaning we can put their name on it, not ours, and then they'll be heroes then, right?
Beautiful, beautiful. Give everybody a big wave, Penny. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll see
Great
you
being here. I
later.
appreciate the invite. Thanks so much.
You bet, brother. All right, that was a great surprise. I wasn't sure. Well, okay. Back to this question. Oh, Jim, you are on fire today. You're throwing a bunch of it out there. There's my guess. That was Penny. There, how's that? You just asked it a little early. Um, as far as some of these other questions that you wanted to hear from Mary and Coop and what they're going to be doing coming in the near future, um, as far as what we were talking about right when Penny came on from Chris, that is a priority, and I think that's something that we've always been that I'm learning a great deal about and from. I thought coming from a big city into a small town, I was happy to bring that experience and impact the town in some shapes and some ways. And as I said before, I'm it's been a little humbling. I'm starting to realize how much big cities really need what we have here in Mangum, which is the ability to lead people that you shop at the same shops. They shop where you do, and you see them day in and day out. You look them in the eye, and you have that ability to face people and talk to them. And if you disagree, you have that conversation, or you don't, and it doesn't change who you two are. One of my best friends in town is completely very uh, other ways leaning. She's a great woman. She's a lot of fun. Her kids are cool. As a matter of fact, one of them works with me here, and we don't share the same politics at all. And but we even have some general conversations, because I think we're learning from each other about those things, which is different than the rest of this country, much less the rest of this world. So as far as that priority and with unity, that's here, and that is always and will always be a priority in towns like this. It's very exciting to have that. Cody, looks like we got another show here. Maybe Cody Cottle. What's the first major issue Commissioner Cooper plans to tackle? He told me just the other day we were talking about this, and while the roads are something that's pretty important and definitely something, there's some ideas that are going on with that. Certain parts of the town have less priority in the infrastructure the further out you go, right? I mean, that's not uncommon. But as far as the first priorities, oh, wait, did he leave something else here? Thanks, Ron. Adios. See you, Penny. Thanks, Penny, again for being on. That was a pleasure to have you here, brother. So how can let's see let's go back to this. What's the first major issue? So the roads are definitely in a lot of people's thoughts, but he's talking about what's underneath of them as a priority. And I didn't realize that at first, but after he said it, it made a lot of sense, and that I've already experienced it already. And we talked about it when he was here on the show, as a matter of fact. And that's the water pipes, and there's some serious issues there. The pipes and the pumps are undersized and breaking and broken and under constant repair. So that's probably going to be one of the first major issues. But you know what? Coop is going to be on the show periodically. So I really look forward having those fireside chats and just hanging out with those guys. What do we got here? Dirk, how can citizens stay involved beyond the election season? Well, every month, city councils typically, I think typically it's every month, no matter where you are. I know here, for instance, it's the first Tuesday of the month. Get into city councils, run for office yourself. If you're in the school age, get into active with your school, not only curriculum and sports, but also student councils. And talk to your parents. Start there. Ask your parents questions. I think that's where kids need to start. Really, is try and have conversations with your parents, and depending on your parents and your relationship, it's gonna take some time, or it'll just flow right in, or you may get a quirky look from your whoever you're talking to. Really, you want to know that, huh? So those are some ways to really get involved. Like I said, run for office. Come on this show. I really want to build off of what we've started here so far. I look forward to that, and we'll see how that goes. Will these fireside updates be monthly or quarterly? That's a great question, Jack. I don't know yet. I'm hoping probably, you know what? Here's probably what'll happen is we'll maybe do a couple in a month, like 1 month, and then the next month we'll do one. And depending on how much is going on, because one thing, if I love the oh wait, this one. I love the way you put this, because Jackie, it's not like something is going to be happening every single month, so you don't want to talk about the same thing over and over again. Right now, the way he and I talked about it is periodically. I won't even talk to him probably for a few more weeks at least, even about it, until then. After that, I'll be able to know more. What infrastructure projects are at the top of the list? We talked about that. Yeah, so the infrastructure that's definitely going to be the water, the pipes, the pipe system. As far as I know, I'm not in city government or in government at all, and I like it that way. And so I'm not sure, I'm not positive, but just from what I've understood to be so far. How can young people in Mangum get more engaged in leadership? Well, we talked about when with Mary Jane Scott. The schools already, and the farm and the ag already really do a lot with kids as far as leadership opportunities. And sports is an additional tool to where you can really pick up those skill sets. The Regeneration School project that's what it's built on, is leadership, accountability. It's life, preparing kids for life. So there's really some simple ways to do it. We just need to talk more about it. Love seeing leaders who actually sat down and spoke from their hearts on this show. Yeah, me too. Brent and I talked about this in the opening monologue, and the ones who wanted to sit down and feel conversation and heart to heart is important. Those are the ones who were elected, and that's pretty cool to me. Proud of Mangum for showing up and responding with conviction. That's very cool, Cody. Appreciate your input, brother. And then, of course, here we saw the Leaf Lab, and then can strong community health really reduce political division? Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a couple of different times, and that. Thanks, Jim. In that, part of becoming healthy is, you're when you're not healthy, you get a lot more brain fog. When your body is has when your body has, hold on, let me move this over, inflammation we talked about. When your body has that, it's it, not only do you have that pain, that constant pain, which is distracting and sets you on edge, and does a lot of really nasty things to you. Um, it's it's also that brain fog, and when you have that, you literally, it takes so much from you, and so, now when you're presenting a point, in other words, let's take political divides. Now those things become more animated and and maybe not as well spoken, but maybe more divisive. And so, yeah, I mean, a strong community health, both physically and mentally, definitely can reduce political division. What role does Total Fitness plan to play in this movement? Honestly, John, I don't know that. I just use Total Fitness, the gym, um, because it's definitely a hub of the town. It's very active. It's 24 hours a day, and very nice club, by the way. But it's not literally planning to be part of the movement, but it's the center of where, obviously, that's where most people go to work out around here in this county, much less. So its role is unplanned, but definitely substantial. Are there plans for community-wide health initiatives? Yes, there are. I've met. We've had a meeting. God, remember when we had Fitz on the show, and she's has the same mission, the health. And that Friday, I had there was a round table over here at the bank, at the Great Plains Bank. That's my bank. But they have this awesome meeting area that they offer out for not for profits. Anyway, the Oklahoma State Health Department was here, and we're having some discussions around this very conversation. So I mean, there's really no other way to put it. But here's what here's what I want you to consider as we close down the show. Because the world right now runs in outrage cycles in national politics, and certainly in civil unrest, education strain. Let's face it, burnout. But small towns have something powerful if they choose to use it. Proximity. I was talking about this earlier, and strength. If we build muscle physically, culturally, we don't just survive pressure, we outlast it. That's why conversations with Commissioner Cooper Earl won't stop at the campaign. That's why discussions with Mary Jane Scott continue on. That's why the work that's being done at Total Fitness with Marilyn, why that matters. Mind, body, community. Three pillars. If you believe in this kind of independent, grounded media where civil dialogue meets real life application, then I need you to do something simple. Subscribe to the channel. engage on Substack, watch more than one episode, then share it with someone who cares about this town. Because this isn't about one election. It's about building a place that flourishes long after Mangum moves, long after the election. So Mangum moves forward. Now let's make sure we're strong enough to move with it. I'm Rod Duff. This is Insights and Straight Talk. That's your Friday mic drop, and I am out of here.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.